of the Vietnam War era was very fearful and angry due to the spread of communism. It started out in the 1950s with a very optimistic time. The people of the U.S. didn't feel like the troops belonged in Vietnam and started many anti-war movements. This led to a low morale of the U.S. troops and they wanted to pull out of the war.
One of the most significant events in the Vietnam War was the Tet Offensive. A large number of Viet Cong soldiers launched a large-scale attack from the Ho Chi Minh Trail. It was important because many people believed it was a turning point in the war in the favor of the northern Vietnamese soldiers.
William Westmoreland served in World War II and in Korea. He was the American commander in South Vietnam. He requested for more U.S. troops in Vietnam because he felt that the South Vietnamese army had a weak fighting ability. He talked to the Johnson administration and more troops were sent. His strategy for destroying the Viet Cong consisted of destroying their morale through gradually wearing them down by continuous harassment. Westmoreland later stated that the United States never lost a battle in Vietnam. Ho Chi Minh, who was associated with North Vietnam, helped create the Indo-Chinese Communist Party and led Vietnam's independence movement. He also contributed to forming the Viet Minh and helped win Vietnam's independence from foreign rule. Ho Chi Minh later declared Vietnam an independent nation. He won most of his support through breaking up large estates and redistributing land to peasants. He supplied arms and supported the Viet Cong in their fight against the Diem government. Ngo Dinh Diem was the anti-communist South Vietnam president. He led a corrupt government that suppressed opposition of any kind and gave little land to peasants. The Viet Cong was formed and began attacks on the Diem government. He lost popularity because of the constant corruption and his failure to respond to land reform. For South Vietnam to remain stable, Diem had to go and he was assassinated.
Democrat Lyndon B. Johnson assumed the presidency after the assassination of JFK. He inherited the escalating crisis that was the Vietnam War. Though he realized that heavy involvement in Vietnam would not reflect well on his chances for re-election, Johnson supported the domino theory and had the mentality of a hawk. He authorized Operation Rolling Thunder, a full-scale bombing of the Viet Cong in early 1965, and also sent additional troops. In response to the economic slump and radical values prevalent on the home front, Johnson presented his vision for America, the Great Society. He outlined a legislative program that would help fight poverty and racial injustice. He also provided $1 billion in educational aid. Despite a high approval rating, Johnson announced he would not seek re-election on March 31, 1968.
There's battle lines being drawn.
Buffalo Springfield believes no matter what happened in the war in Vietnam or the divided country in the U.S., it would end badly anyway.
Getting so much resistance from the time we stop. Hey, everybody look what's going down.
Another significant event was the tragedy at Kent State. A group of anti-war protesters gathered at Kent State to make their point known. The protests got out of hand and several protesters were killed by riot policemen. This was important because it angered citizens more and put a target on the government's back.
Throughout the 60s, various new fashion trends came to light and attracted attention. Bikinis, paisley print clothing, go-go boots, and tie-dye shirts, matched with bell-bottom jeans and flip-flops, were all popular clothing trends during this era. During the Vietnam War, citizens in the United States were on both sides in terms of whether or not to stay in the war. A majority of citizens wanted to pull out of the war due to a lack of advancement and the large amount of casualties. And this led to the people growing more and more upset and their morale declining. Household products such as vacuums, dishwashers, portable television sets, laundry detergents, and Charmin bathroom tissues were all essential pieces to American life during the 60s.
In 1968, Lyndon Johnson did not run for presidency and Richard Nixon was elected. It was important because he brought in a new mindset and took all the heat and scrutiny from the past war.
In 1973, America and Vietnam signed a ceasefire in Paris. This marked the end of the only war the U.S. did not win. It showed a lot about our country as a whole.
Some folks are born made to wave the flag. Ooh, they're red, white, and blue. And when the band plays,
They supported the government and left problems to be solved by lower class people who did the fighting in Vietnam.
The My Lai Massacre was another important event in the war. It took place when a platoon of American soldiers killed a village of innocent Vietnamese civilians. It was very confrontational when the story was revealed, and it created more tension both in Vietnam and America.